Well, welcome to God for My Business, and this is the Rone Dolph Show, and this segment is God for My Business, and I'm here with Gary Haynes with the Countertop Center. And good to have you on, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
Had you on before, and it's always been fun. And Gary does the countertops. And Gary, tell us a little bit about our business. We're going to today be talking about what we've been through in 2000 and this last year.
It's been a long couple of years. I think it's been a couple of years since we talked.
No, but I think this last year with COVID and everything else.
Yeah,
just
been almost two now. Yeah.
Having faith, through our business. So we're going to talk about that. But now, Gary, you do mostly, you do a lot of reconstruction apartment.
Yeah, we do a ton in the apartment trade. We're a manufacturer supplier, so we're building countertops. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's high volume, some of it's individual. Homeowners will find their way in, and they have a handyman contractor, and they're remodeling their house. Right. So they'll come in and get countertops that manufactured as well. Mm-hmm. And we do stone, butcher block, and laminate. Those are our three segments we work in. Mm-hmm. And so we manufacture countertops and all those. There's a price point in those three. There's a price point for everybody,
Right.
That's kind of the idea. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to come in and get their remodel in their own home, they could do that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or if they want to do an apartment complex, they could do an apartment complex.
We do a ton of those. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. That's most of your business, isn't it?
It is. It's the bulk of our business is the larger contract work. The other stuff is taking care of customers and making sure everybody who comes in can get what they need. Mm-hmm. But really what feeds us as a company is the larger ongoing projects, which is normally commercial or apartment remodel. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you brought some samples.
Yeah, a few little goodies.
What's this?
So this is quartz. This kind of represents the idea of a man-made surface, non-porous and very consistent in its pattern. This might be something you put on a counter versus a look you might do similar in a natural stone. So here you have a similar look, whites and grays, marbling kind of effect. But in a natural stone, you'll get variations every few slabs. One will look different. Then it's more like an oil painting versus a print, if that makes sense.
No, this is...
This is a natural stone.
Yeah, but what kind of stone?
It's a Calcutta, so this is a granite.
Oh, okay, granite. So is granite porous too?
Granite is porous. Marble's very porous, and quartz, this other one, which is why it's usually the preferred surface. Quartz is non-porous.
Oh, okay.
So you get some advantages there. They're generally about the same price points. They're stone related.
This is what I would have to have in my house because I tend to make spills.
That's how I think most of us feel. That's right.
Now, what was this one? Is this man-made
So this
too?
is a quartz. Yeah, this has got some shiny kind of pigments to it. This is a mitered edge. A lot of times when you'll see like the islands where you'll have an island sitting there and then it rolls to the floor, transition to the floor. Yeah. We miter that corner so there's no lines. It runs all the way down to the floor. That's just kind of an example of an edge detail.
It's amazing because they're like they are perfect. It's amazing. And then this is
butcher block.
Yeah.
So butcher block, natural wood, is usually more of an accent piece. We do a ton of like islands, for example. We have a stocking program where I stock 2 species of wood. This one is a walnut. You get a little darker wood pattern out of it. We do a ton of walnut. That's kind of the popular, a little more expensive, but popular species. But yeah, we do a ton of walnut, and then we stock Havia and acacia both. And so you can get kind of quicker turnaround butcher block tops. But again, they're usually used in accent areas. A lot of companies will use them in the entryway transaction counters. If they're not using stone, they'll use butcher block. In your house, you might do the non-porous quartz at the walls and then a nice butcher block for an island. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That'll get you some brownie points right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do those. And then the laminate that we do is more of the volume item that caters a lot to investment properties and larger budget scale places. So a new doctor's office with a bunch of exam rooms, those are always laminate because there's a lot of footage in there. So price adds up pretty fast. So that's usually laminate throughout. Yeah.
So. And it's nice. Houses. Easy to clean.
Yeah. Non-porous still. Yeah, that's right. Lasts forever.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot more with it these days than you used to, Laminate we used to always think of as grandma's little oatmeal colored little top that they all look the same. Now there's a lot of patterns and edges. And
it's pretty amazing.
Goes a long way.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
Now, how long have you been in business?
I've been in business my whole life. The Countertop Center, we've been standing in the building. We're in about 10,000 square feet in an industrial park in mid-Phoenix. We've been there about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we've been building countertops there for a decade.
Yeah.
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 That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, we were talking earlier, we were talking about, this last year with, COVID and everything else going on, and, it's a little bit tougher to get, supplies.
Right. Everybody heard about the wood industry. Let's face it. It was a big ordeal.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, now, does this stuff come from overseas?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Almost all of this product tends to be imported. Natural stone is quarried, and it's quarried in Brazil and Greece largely. Mm-hmm. It's imported nonetheless. Quartz products largely came out of China before tariffs and things affected that. Now they're still coming from India and stuff. Some of the quartz did get hit with supply chain issues a bit. We certainly have seen price variations affect everything we touch, right?
Right.
The wood industry, which affects the butcher block and the laminate,
Right.
was also affected a lot. This it's been a solid year and a half, right? We're in December, so last February when this thing all started, it started pretty quickly adjusting a lot.
Yeah.
It was a challenging couple of years to be in business.
Yeah.
As a business owner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you've made it.
We made it. We're standing. That's right. There's a testament.
So we were talking too about, just over this last year, having to, really stand in faith and hold your ground, and in some cases, like you said, we couldn't even go to church, and some churches just completely closed.
Right.
I think there was one time when our church was closed for about a month or something. That some of them were longer than that.
Yeah, we had a closure of, God, it must have been, felt like 6 or 8 months. It seemed like, let's say it could have been 4, but it felt like 6 or 8. I assure you. And as a business owner, I lean a lot on my faith, and we talked. Matter of fact, last time, a couple of years ago, we talked about the still small voice, guides me and my entire business.
Right.
It seems like month after month. And certainly, when you're plugged into church and you have the small groups, plugged into, and I was part of a men's group.
Right.
It's easy to rely on your brothers and read the word and feel like God can pour into you, which really helps you hear that still small voice is going to be out back there either way, talking to you.
Right.
It's whether you're tuning into it or not. And it was definitely a year where without church, when small groups weren't meeting, you really had to be strong in your personal faith. You couldn't rely on going to church and that association with brethren kind of guiding you. So I really found, for me personally, I found a lot of time where I plugged into a lot of things that I could get my hands on that were physically, some video type stuff, motivational speaking. I've been a Tony Robbins follower, and I subscribe to the Dave Ramsey, and I watch a lot, and that helps some. But really where I found the majority of me coming to fill that void was I happened to buy a home about 4 years ago that sits with some opening behind it, and the neighbors both point in the back in a little different direction. I have a patio that sits under the stars, and it's my space. And I go out there and I talk to God. I, look for that guidance.
Right.
And it was, months of that. It was months and months of really, you have to look and seek for that guidance. He's there.
Right.
You just got to ask. You
Right.
know. He'll talk you through anything.
Right.
And there have been a lot of things in this particular year to talk through. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's that still small voice that that we need so much, and we don't know how the next year is going to go either.
That's
so
right.
we're all kind of dependent upon that. I think that for some people it's been harder than others. Some people have been able to hear a little bit better, but the interesting thing is we all need to hear from God. God always has a plan for our business. He always has something that he wants to talk to us about in our life and get us over those difficult times.
Sure.
The good thing is we can actually trust him. That's what's nice.
That's right.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, he's there and he's talking to you, and it doesn't matter the level of our faith. God's forgiveness and love is really not deserved, earned. It was paid by Jesus.
Right.
And even if you're not an everyday follower, even if you're not plugged into a church, even if you're not on the patio like me, talking to God on a daily basis, right? He's there. It doesn't take much more than a simple conversation with him for him to come into your heart and lead you.
Right.
He's there for sinners and saints the same, right? As the saying goes. And that's the warmth we can all know, whether we are plugged in and daily interacting with brethren and praying on a regular basis, or one day comes where you decide, I've been doing this wrong, and now I need to hear from God, and now I'm ready to talk to him. He's there.
Yeah.
He's always been there.
It's really interesting, and I know this has happened in my life where, especially back, for me, it was back in 2008, 2009 when the housing, market crashed.
You were there for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little young. I was a little younger, but I don't think I had more hair. But back there, they changed some laws in the insurance in the industry, and I was in that industry, and so it was really hard for me. It wasn't because of the housing; it was because of the insurance changes and stuff. But then it's really, the advantage came in that I knew how to, to hear from him. I knew how to go to him and listen to him, and I had to do it every day because life was tough.
Sure, you needed him every day.
I needed him every day. I needed to hear from God every day. And I think it's important for people out there to hear this, people that are in business, or you don't know, what to do, and you need to hear from God. You need to get some direction from God. You could be, tossed between, your convictions and, do I want to take, a shot, or, that type of thing. And if I don't, I'm going to lose my job. But there's people that are standing up and they're saying, no, I'm going to choose not to, because there are personal convictions in that. Right. And that's something, if you're going to do that, you have to hear from God.
Sure.
But
and this year, as a business owner, I will say there have been some monumental, in that same sense. Yeah. And similar contrasts. I can go back to 08, 09 housing market, but maybe many of us can, where similar things happen. But certainly, in this last year and a half, I've made some decisions that I really had. My faith leads me to a point where I really have to rely on God's goodness, because I'm making decisions that affect a lot of people sometimes. I say that as an example, when this whole thing began, I laid off all of my staff members. I had a full layoff. A few months into the pandemic, there were some law changes, like you had mentioned, in the insurance realm. Right. There were a few things that made employment changes that had happened, and I laid everybody off, kind of a reset, if you will. It was only for literally one day. I was there, just me. I came in just me one day, and then I said, okay, I'm going to start bringing in the guys that are critical, that I need, because sometimes we have excess. And this didn't feel like a year of having excess was going to work. And it was kind of the point is, it was kind of a monumental decision that you don't make lightly. You don't just wake up one morning and go, you know what, I think I'm going to lay everybody off today. You can't make those kind of decisions by yourself. Right. And that's where you're making those, with God. God, is this the right thing? I mean, I guarantee you, there were days, maybe even weeks of exactly how am I going to do this? And what's it going to mean, not just to me, but to those around me. You know? And so you have to lean on them and there have been a number of things. I mean, this last year or so, there have been a lot of changes with not being able to get supplies, or one sector of industry is really high one minute, then another sector is really high. What kinds of things do I do in business? But those affect as well your personal life. There's a lot of times where my personal life's on hold while I'm trying to manage a business through this pandemic. And it's only through, in the strength of God that, because I know in my industry, just since this whole thing started, I know of 4 businesses that just decided they were done. The owner had been around a while, and they said, we're just the easy thing to do is to close it up, sell it off, and go on to do our other things. And the point being that even that decision, not that's a right or wrong decision, but even that decision is something you really have to be able to lean on others. Otherwise, we can find ourselves making decisions that aren't the best for us or for others.
Right. Plus, you have, choosing to stick with it. You have employees that, if you laid them off for one day, but you still have employees that are counting on having a job, and so that's a big deal. It's a big responsibility, and it helps to be able to hear from God on that.
Yeah, it's a big thing. I have to hear from God before I pull a trigger on something like that. Yeah. But that's me and my faith. If I can't hear that that's the right decision, I will, I'll think through another method or other decisions. Right. I have to hear, somewhere in that still small voice, there has to be a resounding, okay, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. That's why I think it's so important for other business people out there, Gary, to hear you talk like this, because it's reassuring for them. Just like you said, back when the church is down and the small groups are gone, now you're on your own, and so a lot of people are out there and they're it's like that, and they need to hear this testimony, because they need to hear that, well, if you can hear from God and you can get direction from God and you can be solid in your direction because of that, then I can too. And that's what we need. We need to be encouraged by one another. It's so important for business people to hear this. Sometimes you're in a situation where you've got to make these tough decisions. Other times, God's actually leading you to grow your business or expand or doing something, and that's just as scary as being in this last year.
And I feel I can picture the person who's in a position like I'm in, running a business, making decisions for other people and for their business,
right?
And not having that, the amount of sadness or empathy I can feel, I can try to picture myself being in that position without being able to rely on God and talk to God and work through those decisions would be super lonely. And there's business people out there that are in similar situations. I find myself trying to reach out to and say, hey, there's somebody you can talk to if you can't, especially back when we weren't able to get together and talk so much, and reach out to them with the message, that God is there for them. Because otherwise you can feel like you're alone in a dark room trying to solve a monumental problem by yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a lonely place to be.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. So that's where, again, the Word of God, and I find myself trying to speak to other business owners, in empathy, that they're not alone.
Right.
They've always got God on their side.
Right. They, we were talking earlier again, and just chit-chatting about putting things on your wall, Christian things, and letting people know that you're a believer, and sometimes. A lot of business owners, there's like the 2 rules, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about, politics, right? And so it's almost like you're afraid to, tell anybody that you're a Christian. And you're certainly not.
I'm not, yeah. I have a business that has an open front door, so I don't stand at the front door talking to everybody that comes in, but I do have my own personal faith. My own personal faith means if they come into my business and they witness that, they're just seeing my business built on my faith. And so there'll be, maybe subtle signs. I mean, I've always got light music. It almost sounds like elevator music playing in the background, but it's Christian music. And, postings on the wall and a few things that'll say stuff like, me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. And occasionally that'll spark the conversation where somebody will say, hey, I saw that right there. And I get a chance to talk to somebody at that point, As a business owner, you're right in that. Sometimes you feel a little bit reserved in just reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, do you know Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if there's any sign of somebody interested or somebody in need of that conversation, that a lot of times will open that door. But certainly if you walk in my front door, you're walking into a Christian-owned business.
Right.
There's no mistake of that.
Right. And that's good too, because, if we're afraid to honor him, he's not going to honor us. That's what the scripture says. So, there is, that, responsibility that we have. Now, we don't have to, try to get everybody born again and walks in the house, no, or walks in the business. But we can build relationships with our customers. And the more they're around us, the more they see that, Christ is a big part of our life. So that's good. That's important for people to see that. And again, I can't help but think that these conversations that we're having are so important for people that maybe you're not going to a church, and maybe you're not going to a you don't have a men's group or something like that. So you need to hear, they need to hear this.
Sure. I think that's an important place where that message to come into play. Sometimes the conversation is a spark that started with a fellow believer, and then it's more of the topic of, hey, we're business, we're both fellow believers.
Right.
To me, it certainly is much more important when that conversation is a little bit more around somebody who's not a believer, who maybe just a comment is made or two, but they get to see that your faith and your Christianity can be worn on your sleeve, and that it is a part of your life. It's just not something you do, a place you go to once at Christmas time each year, you know, like it may be for some, but that they can involve and encompass their life. Right. In the faith of God,
I think at some point, especially during this time, this last year, but people losing their jobs and stuff like that. The thing I always think about is if you can just get over and trust God and believe God that He's going to give you a way out. He's some people just they want to give up, throw in the towel, like you said, but at some point we have to let them know that there's somebody that we can trust in and we can talk to, and he can get us through it. I always think about situations when I hear about people going through tough situations and they want to give up, and I always think it's just right around the corner. The answer is right around the corner for you. You just stick with it. The answer is right there. Right. And I've seen that so many times in people's lives, where they're just they're right there at the end, and then they want to chuck it.
Yeah, you can't give up short. There's many times I'm looking, God, help me with this situation, and I don't hear an answer today.
Yeah.
But tomorrow I'm asking God again, help me with this situation. I'm just anything, I'll go left or right. You show me. Yeah. And again, you might not get an answer, but you certainly can't say, well, if I don't give an answer, I'm just done.
Right.
And that faith is what gives you an answer will come. Yeah. It's in His time, not ours.
Right. I think 2008 was really a trying time for a lot of people. I remember that time very well, and it was a good example of, hey, you didn't die. You may have lost your house, you may have had these other things happen, but you're back up again. Because I know realtors, that lost everything during that time. Sure. And they lost some of their rental property, and but now they're doing okay. They've come back. So we're going to come back from this. We're gonna make it. Yeah. And it just helps to be able to trust God and know Him and His ways. Well, it's exciting to have you on the show, Gary, and.
Well, I appreciate you having me back out. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
This is like a then and now episode, right?
Kind of, yeah.
We've gone completely through a pandemic since we met last.
Yeah. It was easy street before. No, it wasn't easy street, but business is always challenging. I always look at business as being you're either going up or you're going down. You got to be careful because when you're at a level spot, you got to watch out.
Yeah, in my opinion, it almost doesn't exist. Right. You cannot be idle. There is no such thing. Either you're growing or you're shrinking,
or you
gotta be in motion. In some pattern or another.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're kind of being deceived. You're thinking everything's okay, and then you're about to have everything drop from underneath you.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen with a lot of business people too. So yeah. So that's good. Good to have you on. We'll have to have you back on again and just hear some good reports of what's happening with your business. And so how are you doing now because we're kind of, at least in Arizona, we're a little bit moving, in the right direction. We don't have to wear masks,
That's right.
everywhere.
Some of the restrictions are lifted. I think we weathered pretty good in all of it here in Arizona. And certainly, business has been okay. Being able to be out and about, of course, in recent has been, I think, emotional relief for everybody. Being able to be on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I know. We had some people out from California. They're like, "Oh man, I can walk around. I don't have a mask on." They're like, so awesome for them. Now that we're kind of used to it, But,
right.
We're kind of back to normal again. So. Well, good to have you on, and we will have to have you back on again. And, tune in for, the Guide for My Business on the Rone Show. And we always have different people on. We're talking about business and being in faith in our business. And so, Gary's just been a real pleasure to have you on.
Good to see you.
We'll see you again. And we'll see everybody else out there again. And you can go to Gary's thecountertopcenter.com. and look at his website if you need anything made.
We can make it.
He can make it. He can make it all. So we'll see you next time.
Keep the faith.